the most documented war in human history.
Ob du glaubst, dass ich fleißig gewesen bin.
And it's still hiding secrets.
But despite the resemblance and the moustache, it was clear that it was not Hitler.
We have footage, we have diaries, we have confessions from war criminals on trial, we have satellite images, DNA tests, and declassified CIA files. And yet, there are things about World War II that nobody can explain. The greatest general America ever produced, dead 12 days after the war ended, on an empty road, in a slow-speed crash. 8 tons of priceless art, dismantled, crated, shipped east, and then gone. A man who saved over 100,000 lives, swallowed by the Soviet Union. These aren't stories from the fringes. These are documented, verified, unresolved, and they have been driving historians absolutely mad for 80 years. In this video, we are going to explain real, documented gaps in the story of the deadliest conflict in human history. Buckle up. George S. Patton was the most feared American general of the entire war. The Germans tracked him obsessively. Eisenhower used him as a decoy before D-Day because the enemy was that convinced Patton would lead any major invasion. He survived North Africa, Sicily, the liberation of France, and the Battle of the Bulge without a scratch. Then, just 12 days after a minor car accident in occupied Germany, December 1945, the war already over, he was dead. Here's where it gets strange. The accident itself was suspicious. On December 9, 1945, at 11:45 a.m., a Dodge T214 military truck made an unindicated turn on a secondary road near Mannheim and collided side-on with the Cadillac staff carrying General George S. Patton, his chief of staff, General Hobart Gay, and the driver, Private Horace Woodring. The impact was of low speed. Gay and Woodring were unharmed. Patton suffered a fracture dislocation of the 3rd and 4th cervical vertebrae, which caused immediate quadriplegia. Then, just as he was recovering and doctors were optimistic, he suddenly took a sharp turn and died of what was recorded as a pulmonary embolism. In 2008, a former OSS officer named Douglas Bazata gave a public statement claiming he had been contracted to assassinate Patton, and that the real killing blow was a low-velocity projectile fired into the car during the crash, followed by a lethal injection administered at the hospital. The motive, allegedly, Patton had become dangerously vocal about wanting to rearm the Germans and march straight into the Soviet Union. He knew too much, said too much, and powerful people on multiple sides wanted him gone. The truck driver was not subjected to any disciplinary action nor a formal traffic investigation. The truck was also not subjected to any documented technical inspection. That's why this accident sparks suspicions that persist to this day. The greatest American general of World War II died on a quiet road, 12 days after the war ended, and the full truth of how has never been proven. Hitler shot himself in his Berlin bunker on April 30, 1945. His body was burned. Case closed, except it isn't. For decades, the Soviet Union claimed to have Hitler's skull and jaw fragments as proof. In 2018, French scientists ran DNA tests on those skull fragments and found they belonged to a woman under 40. So whose skull was the USSR showing off all these years? Nobody knows. Hitler's death remains officially confirmed, but the physical evidence? Shaky at best. Despite mainstream historians confirming his death in the bunker, proponents of the escape theory point to the 1945 arrivals of U-530 and U-977 in Argentina as evidence of a naval rat line. They suggest Hitler and Eva Braun were ferried to Patagonia, living out their lives in seclusion at estates like Inalco. Interestingly, Hitler has a secret hideout spot there. Called the Eighth Wonder of the World, the Amber Room was a stunning chamber of amber panels, gold leaf, and precious gems, built in the 18th century and gifted to Peter the Great. When the Nazis invaded Russia in 1941, they dismantled it and shipped it to Königsberg, what is now Kaliningrad, Russia. After that, silence. It vanished. Some say it burned in Allied bombing raids. Others believe it's buried somewhere beneath Eastern Europe, still intact. Treasure hunters have spent fortunes and lifetimes searching. The Amber Room has never been found. Martin Bormann was Hitler's chief of staff, arguably one of the most powerful men in the Third Reich. He disappeared in the chaos of Berlin's fall in May 1945. For decades, he was placed on the Nuremberg war crimes list as a fugitive. A skeleton discovered in Berlin in 1972 was identified as Bormann's, and DNA testing in 1998 confirmed it. So yes, he apparently died in Berlin. But here's what still haunts researchers. Why did so many credible witnesses claim to have seen him alive in South America years after the war? That part remains unexplained. In May 1941, before the United States had even entered the war, Hitler's deputy, Rudolf Hess, climbed into a Messerschmitt, flew solo across the North Sea, parachuted into Scotland, and asked to speak to the Duke of Hamilton. His stated goal: negotiate peace between Britain and Germany. Churchill called it lunacy. Hitler claimed Hess had gone mad. But the real question is, was Hess truly acting alone? He had a detailed flight plan, specific contacts, and a prepared negotiation proposal. Someone had to know. British government files on Hess were classified for decades. Some remain sealed to this day. In 1947, just after the war, a distress call crackled across the sea. All officers, including captain, are dead, lying in chart room and on the bridge, possibly whole crew dead. When rescue ships reached the Dutch freighter SS Orang Medan, they found every single crew member dead, frozen in expressions of sheer terror, arms outstretched, eyes wide open. Before the ship could be towed to port, it caught fire and exploded. No official record of the ship exists in maritime registries. Theories range from carbon monoxide poisoning to a secret chemical weapons cargo. The truth, gone with the explosion. Unit 731 was the Imperial Japanese Army's covert biological and chemical warfare research unit. Operating in occupied China, it conducted horrific human experiments on thousands of prisoners. What remains unsolved isn't whether it happened. It did, horrifically. But what happened to all the data, the perpetrators, and the remaining evidence? The United States allegedly granted Unit 731 scientists immunity in exchange for their research data. Most senior figures were never prosecuted, and the full scale of what was experimented on and on how many people is still not fully known. Raoul Wallenberg was a Swedish diplomat who saved tens of thousands of Hungarian Jews by issuing them fake Swedish protective passports. In January 1945, Soviet forces took him into protective custody. He was never seen in public again. The Soviets claimed he died of a heart attack in a Moscow prison in 1947, but prisoners held in the Soviet Gulag system claimed to have seen him alive well into the 1950s, even the 1960s. Sweden officially declared him dead in 2016. What actually happened to him, and why the Soviets took him, remains one of the war's most painful open questions. Deep in an Austrian lake, the Nazis allegedly dumped crates of gold, counterfeit currency, secret documents, and possibly weapons near the end of the war. The lake is murky, filled with sunken logs, and notoriously dangerous to dive in. Expeditions have recovered some forged British banknotes, part of Operation Bernhard, a massive Nazi counterfeiting scheme. But the full extent of what's down there, still unknown. Austria restricts diving in the lake, which somehow makes the whole thing even more suspicious. In 1945, a treasure train allegedly loaded with Nazi gold, art, and jewels disappeared in the mountains of Lower Silesia, now part of Poland. For decades it was treated as legend, until 2015, when two men in Poland filed a legal claim saying they'd found it using ground-penetrating radar.
Two people think they may now have found a Nazi German train rumored to have disappeared in Poland near the end of World War II.
They wanted a finder's fee before revealing the location. Polish authorities investigated, geologists surveyed, and the train, if it's there, it hasn't been definitively confirmed. The legend lives on. As the Third Reich collapsed, Nazi officials desperately destroyed records. But how much survived, and where? It's believed significant documentation about Nazi financial networks, escape routes, and secret operations was deliberately hidden, not destroyed, in anticipation of a future revival. Some historians believe entire archives were buried, shipped to South America, or hidden in the Vatican. What exactly was preserved, and by whom, remains a genuine archival mystery. Operation Mincemeat is famous. Britain dressed a dead body as a courier and floated him to Spain with fake invasion plans, fooling the Germans before D-Day. But what's less known is the identity of who exactly within German intelligence chose to believe the documents were real, despite having serious doubts. There was almost certainly a double agent inside German high command, feeding the deception. Who they were has never been conclusively proven. By war's end, the Nazi nuclear weapons program had acquired a significant stockpile of uranium. When Allied forces swept through Germany, much of it was accounted for, but not all. The US military's secret mission, codenamed Alsos, tracked nuclear material across Europe, but historians have noted discrepancies in the amounts recovered versus the amounts the Germans had documented acquiring. A small amount of uranium from the Nazi program remains unaccounted for. Given what uranium is used for, that's a fairly significant loose end. Odessa, the Organisation der ehemaligen SS-Angehörigen, was allegedly a secret network that helped SS officers escape justice after the war, routing them through Spain, South America, and the Middle East via so-called rat lines. Authors and Nazi hunters like Simon Wiesenthal documented its existence, but the full scope, how many people it helped, who funded it, and how deep into government and church institutions it reached, has never been fully exposed. Partial records exist, the complete picture does not. When Hitler's Alpine retreat, the Berghof, was captured, a personal safe barrel was found, but it was full of documents. The strange thing about that was, it was opened. What was inside has never been fully disclosed by the US military personnel who opened it. Some accounts mention personal documents and correspondence. Others hint at something more politically sensitive, possibly communications with foreign governments that would have been embarrassing to disclose during the Cold War. The contents were reportedly catalogued and then quietly disappeared into classified archives. 8 decades on, and World War II still hasn't finished telling its story. Every few years, a new document surfaces, a new grave is found, or a deathbed confession cracks open a door we thought was sealed forever. Some of these mysteries may never be solved. The witnesses are gone, the documents are ash, the lakes are deep, but somewhere, in a sealed archive, a forgotten basement, or at the bottom of an Austrian lake, the answers might still be waiting.